a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Okay, welcome. Welcome, everyone.
This is Ashkahn.
I am Graham.
And Graham is back. Yeah.
The Graham is back.
Graham is back. That's exciting.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Yeah. It's good to have you back.
We got questions. Well, one for today. One question.
Yeah.
Sent in by you,
Graham,
our lovely audience.
I was reading the questions while you were gone.
How'd that go?
It went great. I mean, we got a lot of fan mails
Light
talking
versus
about
dark floor
how great
and wall
it was.
coverings.
See, I didn't cut people off with my
mark?
questions. That was one of the things that I did.
Well, you weren't talking to cut
better.
yourself off.
Some people said better. Just
light versus dark floor. Light versus dark
voice.
No. Light versus dark floor and wall coverings. Originally, I had thought that I would get light-colored materials because they don't show up the salt as much. Okay.
They don't show it up as much.
Yeah. However, after visiting a number of centers with dark colors, I'm wondering if the fact that you can see the salt clearly to clean and to check that your employees are doing a good job could perhaps be the best option. What do you guys think? Yeah. I mean, that is... I do know people who are happy with dark float tanks and floors and walls. Let me just say, I do know that there are people who have dark-colored rooms who think that it was a good idea.
Really?
Yes.
For this reason?
For the being able to sea salt to clean it up reason, specifically. There's a... not like sea salt, like
They're putting sea salt in their rooms?
SEE salt. SEE salt.
Well, yeah. But that's also the reason...
I've talked to people who are specifically I think they're crazy. Our rooms are largely white or kind of a marbled white or like a light brown with white marbled streaks going through the light brown
And you can even get, it's not, I wouldn't even exactly say light versus dark because we have some pretty radical floors in some of our rooms. We have some that are blue, vibrant dark blue.
Speckled with white.
Yeah, but they have something in them that hides the salt. So I feel like this question is, should I design my rooms to hide salt or show salt?
Sure.
Right.
Or really they just wanted to know if they're crazy for having a dark-colored room, I think, is the... they aesthetically want a dark-colored room.
But I think you could design, you could get colors that are in that darker range.
Like a speckled white black tile for the walls, it looks like kind of granite, just has white
but that would still hide the salt,
there,
and I think is not the point of the question they're asking. So, despite the exact... light versus... it's much easier to hide salt with light colors than dark colors, of course, but I think it's possible with darker colors.
Let's just say pure white versus pure black. So this is not, our hypothetical situation is not going to hide salt.
Yeah, so I don't know, we design our whole rooms specifically to hide salt.
And so here's the deal. Even after you wipe down the entire room, after you disinfect it, after you go back in and get the disinfectant off of there's still the chance that there's just little salt streaks or that there's a place where salt was hiding in a corner or nothing that would be detrimental to a customer coming in, but enough that they'd see it. And perhaps aesthetically they think that that's a problem or, they're like, oh, they must not have cleaned this room when in fact you can go over a room 5 times and still have little areas that show salt. It's really...
I think that's the distinction here is that I view... salt-free and sanitary is two different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We make sure that the spots in the room that people are going to be interacting with are sanitary between each person, but we also realize that we got to move fast. A transition is a time where time is really valuable and we're trying to hit the most important things. And so for us, it's a benefit that salt can hide a little bit. If it's just this little spot in a corner somewhere and we've hit the main spots that we think are going to provide sanitary safety for people, we just know that we're going to be missing little spots and that at the end of the day when we do a much more rigorous clean of the room after all our floats are done, we're going to go hit all those spots and get all those nooks and crannies and deal with all that remnant saltiness. To me, that's part of what we're aiming to do is be able to miss tiny little nooks and crannies
without the room looking totally disastrous.
Yeah, we want our employees to be able to not have to hit that weird top left corner of something.
Where if you're short, maybe you need to get a step stool in order to get up there. And yeah, for sure. Like, and I think the distinction between what's safe and what's like still has a little bit of salt left behind is a good distinction. And there are ways with the current setup that we have with white walls. I mean, if you have like pure white walls and white salt on them, you can still see where the salt is. You just have to be in the know, I guess, for like the tactics to use, you know? So, I mean, looking at it at a sharp angle and having a bright overhead light, you can really kind of see some of the shadows. Yeah. You can see where there's even just like really light salt residue. So that's one way to do it. And then there's the touch test. Yeah, I almost said taste test. I thought I said it wrong. Not the taste test, the touch test, where you just kind of run your hand over a surface and you can really clearly, even just like a fine layer of salt, feel where that is. So if you do have time to be diligent and get every spot, you can get it really good with white walls still. It's not like your employees are going to be missing the salt that's on the walls as much as just hopefully the clients are not seeing it.
Yeah, like you get much, much better at seeing salt and knowing where it is when you're working there. And also, I mean... what is it? You go.
Okay, well, I was going to just say if you have any more questions, go to Daily Solutions.
No, it's something important.
All right, well, I'll just talk about other stuff for a little bit.
Right, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I will say again that I have talked to people who had dark float tank rooms, and they liked it, and they liked that they could more quickly check in on their staff and see how they're doing, or make their staff more accountable. So that's the argument that I've heard on that side. Well, let's finish mine now. You can't just jump back in now that I've started another topic. Do you want to respond to what I just said?
I wasn't really listening. What did you say?
Never mind. Just go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing, is that the salt, when you wipe it off, sometimes the room will look completely clean, and 5 or 10 minutes later will look salty again, because like it'll look visually totally clean to you, and then as if you had a spot that was really salty and you wiped it and the water evaporates away and it leaves a little bit of like, not even like, bumpy specks of salt as much as like a light coating or
residue,
something,
if you will.
Yeah, the residue. That's like it's so visible on something that's black or those dark colors in a way that it's very much not visible on those.
It's like disappearing,
colors.
Reappearing ink.
Yeah.
It's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's very. Or if you didn't, you get the idea. What disappearing, reappearing ink would be.
I mean, that was one of the hard. Like we used to have black floors, like jet black,
and we had a black float tank.
So this
is not. We're not just like talking out of our asses here. This is coming from real world painful experience of knowing how hard it is to make it so the residue doesn't. Like if you want to make like you have to use single direction wipes going and cleaning off the tank twice through, because if you start going backwards, then the salt residue will show. Like you just have to have all these crazy tactics in order to make sure that residue won't pop up after you leave someone to go into the room.
And we had good employees. It's not like I didn't feel in that process like our employees were not doing a good job or just like being lazy or anything like that. Like it was genuinely people were working their butts off to like clean those rooms between people. And it was just very difficult to like do it so perfectly and like often do it multiple times or something like that to not have that kind of residue appear or miss a little spot in the corner once things dried up a little bit more.
So what I was saying when you couldn't remember what you were saying, to tie back into it with employees, is the people who I've talked to say, and it's like two people. It's two people I know who are really stoked on having their dark or black float rooms. Uh-huh. And they say what they like is it is almost an accountability measure for their staff members to make sure they're going to this deep level of cleaning. So like if they get trained in the way to properly make sure you won't leave these streaks and maybe a residue or something like that, then they can both like go into a dark colored room right after a staff member is finished and see really quickly if they did a good job. And the staff member themselves can check and make sure that they did a good job and kind of knows the level where it's just, okay, you can't show salt.
And your customers
also likewise hopefully won't see. It's just kind of, it might take a little longer to get there, but the idea is that you're creating this environment of salt accountability where because you have to be so diligent, it just makes sure the rooms themselves are also hopefully as clean as they can be.
We need to like put something in the salt that like glows under UV light or something, and then we can go into the room with like special goggles or like a black light and we'll just all show up.
Okay, so
that's really my best suggestion.
If you invent that, definitely send it in. And I guess, so getting back to the very, very original thing. So if you could, you can have a dark room and hide salt is another part of this. Like it really
Yes.
did sound like aesthetically they wanted a dark room, but they're afraid of all this salt. So getting some kind of swirly white going through a dark color, getting even spots, speckled white, stuff like
patterns.
that is, actually really any pattern helps out a lot. But yeah, especially if you have speckled or swirly white kind of going through, those are the things that hide it really well.
I mean, this is what like public transportation does too, right? This is why all these bus seats look all crazy with these insane designs and patterns, and train seats and stuff like that, is because they put those patterns on there so you can't visibly see stains
as well,
and what's going on.
Yeah.
So, if it's good enough for the government.
If you have any other questions, head on down to floatanksolutions.com/podcast.
Yeah, that's the spot.
All right, bye everyone.